Lovely. My name is Reagan Carlisle. I'm the Vice President for Education and Community Programming here at United Arts. And I'm so glad to see so many of you today to learn about mission support grants. Here with us today is my colleague, Lisa McIntosh. She's here. She's getting over bronchitis, so if she has a coughing fit, please excuse her. Seems to be going around with everybody these days. But we will have, let's see, a couple of things. First, captions are activated. So if you need to go ahead and turn those on for yourself at the bottom of your Zoom screen, go ahead. They should be on. And I'm going to stop. If you could all mute yourselves so that the caption catcher only catches the things that are being said, that would be great. I will share with you a number of things today. I'm going to stop at a few points to see if you have questions. But if any point you have a question and you want to go ahead and get it out, go ahead, put it in the chat. And Lisa is going to be our question liaison this morning so that she can make sure that I don't miss any questions, because honestly, I'm not going to be looking at the chat. And so she's going to be the person who does that. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's see here. Oh, I'm already sharing my screen. That helps. Okay, mission support grants. Today is February 23rd. Moving on. Okay, just to refresh your memories, mission support grants are not the only thing that United Arts does. We have a number of programs and grants that we do throughout Wake County. Ultimately, our mission is to support and increase arts programming for people across the county. Our major programs are Artists in Schools, where we have a vetted directory of teaching artists that go into all of our public, private, and charter schools in Wake County. We have the Ideal Summer Internship Program. Last year was called something different, but now moving forward, it's called Ideal Summer Internship. So about taking students from backgrounds that are typically underrepresented in arts leadership and placing them with arts hosts. Some of you applied to be a part of that program. Thank you. Our Wake Mural Program, trying to get murals in to kind of sprinkle throughout the county, and our Piedmont Laureate Program. This year, our Piedmont Laureate is spoken word artist Desan Ahanu. You'll be hearing about him later. Let's see here. For grants, we have grants for individual artists, we have grants for schools, we have grants for towns, and we have grants for nonprofit organizations, which is why you are here today. We have two primary grant programs that support nonprofit organizations, and today we are talking about mission support grants. If you are interested in learning more about community spotlight project grants, there will be an info session on that next month. So we're going to be releasing information about that grant opportunity later today. But this is about mission support grants today. Mission support grants, unrestricted general operating support to Wake County-based arts organizations that provide specific types of arts programming throughout Wake County. I'll go into what each of those things means, but those are very specific words selected for specific purposes. That is what we're talking about today, mission support grants. Primary eligibility requirements. You need to have a primary mission to produce, present, or support arts programming. You need to have nonprofit arts and cultural status. You need to have all of your documents filed with the state and the federal government. You need to be based in and operate most of your programming in Wake County. So based in and operate most of your programming in Wake County. Based in basically means, where does your, what does your 990 say your address is? Is it in Wake County? That's the place we're going to start looking there. You need to be, for those of you who are previous grant recipients, you need to be in good standing with us, which means you turn in final reports on time and you participate in the AEP6 study. You need to maintain a board of directors, which meets at least quarterly, and you need to have policies for non-discrimination, conflict of interest, and accessibility. Secondary eligibility requirements. Do you remember I said that this is unrestricted general operating support for Wake County-based arts organizations that produce specific kinds of programming? This is the kind of specific programming we're talking about. You need to do at least one of these. You need to have arts programs that are specifically designed for youth. And I'm not talking like you have a youth ticket price. That's not specifically designed for youth. Your arts programs need to take place. They can take place all throughout Wake County, but not Raleigh. Remember, Raleigh has a bunch of its own stuff. We are very interested in getting arts programs in those other municipalities in Wake County. You could be a culturally specific organization based on your mission and leadership. Or you could be you could have had your 501c3 status for less than 8 years, or you're an arts service organization. So if none of these describe you, I am sorry to share that mission support grants is not going to be a good fit for you this year. So these are based on our previous programming grant categories before we switched to mission support grant, and our board still feels strongly that these are the ways that we want to support arts programming across our county. So at least one of these. If multiple of these describe you, just pick one. Just pick one. Not eligible to apply. Organizations that receive direct allocations from the state of North Carolina in session law. That means some state legislator has decided you're getting direct money from them. So therefore you have another funding source. We're not your best choice. Or if your annual budget exceeds $2 million a year. Here at United Arts, we are trying to really support the organizations that are a little smaller and to give you the support you need moving forward. Grant request amount, for those of you who have applied before, this is the same as it was last year. You are eligible, you are allowed to request up to 10% of your operating expenses from your most recently completed fiscal year. Unless you are a culturally specific organization, and I will describe that in just a moment, then you are allowed to request 20% of your annual operating expenses from your most recently completed fiscal year. Now, regardless, the maximum amount you can request is $20,000. Okay, so it's either 10% for most of you, 20% for some of you, but no one is allowed to request more than $20,000. Culturally specific organizations. So culturally specific, the way we're defining it here at United Arts is that you have a specific mission to promote, preserve, or enhance the identity or character of one of the following communities: African American, Latinx, and Asian American, or Native American. And this is important. The leadership must demographically represent the culture that your mission says it supports. So that's how we're describing culturally specific organization for the purposes of mission support grants. What this grant can support. So remember I said this is unrestricted general operating support. So you could use it for general operations, you could use it for admin, you could use it for programming. There is nothing keeping you from using this money for programming. It is flexible and unrestricted for you to use as you best need. We got a lot of feedback from you guys, especially during the pandemic and honestly way before then, that this is what an arts organization needs. You need a funder who's like, here's some money, do with it as long as you fulfill your arts related mission. You designate these funds as you best need. This is for next fiscal year. So the fiscal year that starts July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Now there will, in the final report, which for those of you who are current grant recipients, I am aware that you do not have yet the final report template, but you will see that you do have to include the specific expenses. So you can use it for whatever you want, but we need to see what those specific expenses are in the final report. So just keep that in mind. I'm planting the seed now so that this does not come as a shock later. What the grant cannot support. Things like deficit reduction, contributions to your endowment if you have one, scholarships for stuff that's not your programming, private events closed to the general public. I mean, a lot of our dollars that we're sub-granting to you are public dollars. So we want these programs to be available to the public. Or projects of a religious nature that do not have some sort of underlying secular theme. These are not appropriate uses of mission support grant dollars. Okay, that was a lot. I'm gonna take a moment. Lisa, are there any questions?
Yeah, I just got one. So it says the organization that they're representing was incorporated in October 22, so they're in their first fiscal year. And can they apply, I think is the first question, which, and then how would they determine the percentage since they're in their first fiscal year? I mean, that goes under a new organization.
That does go into new organization. Let's have a conversation offline about that.
Yeah.
If you have been doing programming for at least a year, even without your official status, that's good. That makes it so you can apply. You probably have some expenses along those ways that we could work on, but I can work with you directly. Whoever that is, just reach out to me.
That's it for now.
Okay, cool. We'll keep going then.
Oh, wait, chill. Huh? So David wants to know, does the definition of private events include ticketed events?
No. Every once in a while, so just because the public has to buy a ticket to your event, as long as the public is allowed to buy a ticket to your event, then it still counts as a public event. If you had something where you're like a membership organization and I want to use your grant dollars to make this big, beautiful event that only our members are allowed to attend, that's not okay. So tickets are fine. Doesn't have to be a free event. It just has to be open. The public has the opportunity to participate, whether that's buying a ticket or showing up or whatever, register for a class. Those are fine.
Okay, hang on. They're coming in, girl. What is, are you gonna talk about financial contribution expected of board members later?
Yeah.
On Zoom, but
That is still a requirement that we're going to ask that on the application. Do 100% of your board members make a cash contribution? We'll look at the application for that, but yeah, that's still a requirement because we work really hard to raise money to give to you all, and therefore we think your board should have more buy-in for your organization than we do. So we don't ask the dollar amount, but it is required.
Culturally specific area does not include other ethnic groups. Inclusive is the question. I'm assuming just the groups that you listed is culturally specific.
There may be some flexibility there. We're using that definition because that's from the North Carolina Arts Council, but I know that there are some flaws in that. So reach out to me if there's something, and we will find a way to make that work.
Yeah, and there's some other things like for new organizations questions, and I feel like they're probably best asked to you directly because I know they can set up a meeting with you after this.
I try to be accessible.
Can event be public but focused on a particular area? Can an event be public but focused on a particular? Yes, as long as it's public, right?
Do you mean like a geographic area? Like if you want to do something at a park in Nightdale?
No, they're saying more like they're saying cancer survivors, veterans, and seniors, etc.
I mean, yes, because, well, I would assume if somebody did not, yes, because the same way that you might have a number of classes that are geared toward elementary students, that is still open to the public. So to me, that's comparable and acceptable.
I think we can move on. So they're asking about the cash. Somebody else is saying about the cash support from the board. Can you repeat what you said?
I'm going to get into that once we get in the application.
I thought. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Everybody good? Let's move on.
Let's look at the application. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to switch my screens so that you all, okay, first, let's see here. Can you see a screen that says eligibility form for mission support grants? Lisa, can you see that? Okay, good. Okay, so this is a little bit new this year. So that before you can have access to the application, you have to prove your eligibility. And this is what it looks like when you click the link. It says, are you a nonprofit? arts or cultural organization with 501c3 status? Yes or no? Do you have a primary mission to directly produce, present, or support arts programs? Yes or no? Are you based in Wake County? Does the applicant operate most of its programs in Wake County? Does the applicant receive a direct allocation from state of North Carolina in session law? Does your budget exceed 2 million? See how all of those are the primary eligibility criteria that I just went over? We built it into this form. Okay, and the next secondary eligibility criteria, you pick one of them that describes you. Remember, if more than one describe you, just pick one. If you pick the wrong answer or the answer that makes you ineligible, you're going to get a pop-up thing that says, I'm sorry, you're not eligible to apply for mission support grants. In which case, and if you firmly believe you do, then you need to reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Okay. So this, and then once you fill out this is just about basic eligibility. You get to the big, screen, but hold on a second. I got to figure out, this thing is covering up my tab. I can do this. Hold on. Bonk. Bonk. Uh-oh. Shoot. No, I don't want Zoom. Oh, Lord, guys. Just hold on a second. I want this one. And then I want it to be big again. There we go. Okay. Now, can you see something that says 2324 mission support grant application? Lisa, no, okay, good. Awesome. Okay. This should look, we've been using Submittable for like, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years now. So this should look familiar to those of you who have applied before. For those of you who have not, it is pretty user-friendly. So you will have to create like a username and password to log in to create your account. And that's the one that'll stay with you forever. And I don't have access to that. So if you lose it, you have to reach out to Submittable directly, but I have heard that they are responsive. So the first part of this grant application is pretty straightforward. Your name, the primary address, city, state, zip, website. This is the easy stuff, contact name, your title, telephone, email, year your organization incorporated, and your federal tax ID number. Okay, that's all the easy stuff. Then we get into your board of directors and staff. How many people are currently serving on your board? How many board meetings do you have a year? Now, this is the question some of you are curious about. What percentage of your board donate cash to the organization? If not 100%, please explain. Now, every once in a while, there's a logical reason that 100% of your board did not donate cash to the organization, but more often than not, it's not an okay reason, because United Arts is a nonprofit just like all of you are, and we work really hard to raise all this money. Therefore, like I said, we believe that your board should be even more invested in your organization and help raise funds. Now, we're not asking for the amount, we just want to know the percentage. Your board composition, what is the current demographic makeup of your board? What are your goals regarding board diversity? And then just describe any specific efforts that you've made recently, diversifying your board. Then we want you to upload a board list. So upload a current list of board of directors for each board member, name, address, business affiliation, age, race, any other identifiers. So this is us. It is generally best to have a board full of diverse voices who all believe in your mission and your organization, but represent a variety of backgrounds. And so we're trying to give you a lot of different options on how to describe that board. We're interested in what your goals are, and then we use your board list to kind of see how that's going for you. How many full-time paid employees? Now, some of you don't have any full-time paid employees, and that does not mean that you are not doing incredibly hard, important work, but we know that you maybe haven't gotten to the place where you're able to pay people yet. And some of you have a number of full-time paid employees. So this is for full-time paid, part-time paid, and the number of contracted staff. Now, number of unpaid staff. This could be where, like, if you're serving as the executive director of your organization for $0, you would put yourself here. That's where you would go. You can also put unpaid administrative interns can go here, anything. And then notes about staff numbers. Anything that's weird that you want us to understand, just write it out so we understand. When I train the panelists, I say that, like, some of them are shocked that not everyone has a fully paid big old staff to run every organization. And I'm like, oh, no. That's not normal here in Wake county because there are a lot of organizations that are growing, and you got to start somewhere. And this is how the structure of a lot of our grantees are. So just explain anything you want to explain to us, anything you think would help us understand how you're set up. Just put it there. Moving down, grant request. Remember, you can ask for 10% or 20% if you're culturally specific. The way I'm going to check this, and this is important for later so you don't make a mistake, I'm going to go find your financials from your most recently completed fiscal year, and I'm going to make sure you did the math right. It is important for you to do the math right, because I will dock compliance scores if you don't. So if you have a question, let me know. Otherwise, just know that that's where I'm going to be looking to double check. Is your organization culturally specific? You could yes or no. And here's the definition again that we're using just for mission support grants. And if you need to ask me a specific question about that, please reach out. Okay, then we move into the narrative questions. Your mission statement. Some of you have a mission paragraph. That's fine. History and programming. Give us a sense of what your organization is about, and the core things that you are known for, or that you administer fairly, or the program offerings that you do fairly regularly. If anything significant has changed in the last couple of years, which is possible, we've had a pandemic, you can let us know that under history and programming. This next narrative prompt is new. It's called proposed programming. Now, this is because of feedback that we got from our panelists last year. They said, we're able to read all this great stuff that the organization has done in the past, but what if they have no plans for next year? What if next year they were going to become dormant, and yet we're giving their money to become dormant, which is a great point. So basically, briefly, what are you thinking you're going to be doing next fiscal year? You don't have to go into great detail. If you can say, we still plan on like 5 main stage shows in a summer camp for kids, or we still are planning to do our normal 5 exhibits a year, plus something else, whatever it is, just give us a rough sense of what your plans are for next year. This is about the time of year that a lot of arts organizations start thinking about budgets and stuff for next year. So in theory, you would have some sort of rough idea as to what your goals are for next year. Not too much detail, just help us understand what you're thinking today. Artistic merit. Okay, this is important. We are not telling you what artistic quality and merit look like. We want you to tell us, how does your organization define artistic excellence for itself? And then how does your programming reflect that? You tell us. We're not going to say, these are the ways that something is artistically excellent and of value. We want you to tell us what definitions you use within your organization. Is it getting more cultures represented during your festival? Is it getting more, you want to be sold out for your student camps? Is it you want to hire professional musicians to perform, and then whatever? It's very different for each of you, and that is okay. We just want you to tell us how you want us, through which lens we should be evaluating you and your application. Well, not you, your organization and your application. Community value. Describe the community you serve. How have you responded and adapted to the needs of your community? A lot of you have adapted in pretty remarkable ways over the last 3 years. And if you would like to highlight some of that in this section, that's fine. You could say, well, we're moving out of the pandemic now, kind of mostly. So whatever makes sense for your organization. Like 3 years ago, we had to shift everything to virtual, but now we are back in person, but we still have a virtual component, or it doesn't have to be virtual. Whatever way that you're serving your community, help us understand that. Organizational management. Talk to us about your administrative structure and capacity. We kind of got a sense of how many staff members you have, paid and unpaid, from earlier in the application, but and how many people are on your board. But if there's anything like that would help us understand what your organization is like, this is the place to provide that information. How do you deal with planning and evaluation? This is the place to include that. How do you decide what programs you're going to do next year? Is it some executive director who decides? Do you ask the community for their input? There are lots of right answers. So just let us know how your organization is structured. Number 7, diversity, inclusion, and access. Describe how your organization has demonstrated its commitment toward the principles of equity, diversity, access, and inclusion. How do you serve diverse communities? You tell us. You tell us. And then, because I got a lot of feedback that you all love this last question, just in case there's something else you really believe we need to know, the panelists need to know, what else would you like to share about your organization? Number 8 is the place to do it. Hopefully, there's been a lot of other areas for you to provide a lot of information, but if there's something that didn't quite fit into those other narrative prompts and that you want us to know, number 8 is the place to do it. Okay, participation statistics, moving on. When was your most recently completed fiscal year? Most of you are on a July to June fiscal year, just like United Arts, but some of you are on a calendar year. So just remind us right here through the checkbox which one describes you. And then for that most recently completed fiscal year, give us a sense of like how many people participated. You know, artists, children, volunteers, audiences. We're trying to get a sense of what, just I guess numerically, what your impact in the community is. If it's small, that doesn't mean you necessarily get like a demerit or something. It just helps us understand you. And that's what, like I may know a number of you, some of you I don't know, but our panelists, they know less of you. So this is your opportunity to help them really understand what your organization is about and what's important to you and what your impact is. Of all of those participants, what are the demographics? This is difficult. Do your best. Do your best. Now, participation statistics explanation. Anything you need to describe how this all went up here. Like these numbers were collected because we sent an email out to our audiences, and this is how we were able to calculate these numbers. Just tell us, or you had, I don't know, students registered for classes, and on the registration form, they were asked to self-identify, and that's how we collected these numbers. However you collected these numbers, just let us know. I know this is a lot. Woo! We're getting close, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Remember, don't forget to type those questions in. We're almost at the end, and then I'm going to take them all. Okay, support materials. You have the option of uploading some support materials so that the panel can better understand your organization. We prefer links, but if there are documents, you can upload them too. So there you go. Bios of lead personnel. The people who are responsible for running your organization and your programming. Just to give us a sense, are they qualified? Do they have decades of experience? Or are they new to the scene? Whatever the case may be, we'd love to hear a little bit. It doesn't have to be their resumes. It could just be paragraphs, you know, something like that. Moving to financial statements. This question is the same one we asked above. This is just for ease of the panelists. It's like, remind us again, what was your fiscal year? Is it a July to June or January through December? And then we want to see your financials from the most recently completed fiscal year. This is another change. This used to be 300,000. Now we want to see an audit if your organization's annual budget is 500,000 or above. We're trying to be realistic in how much an audit costs and what your capabilities might be or capacity might be to pay for such a thing. If you have an audit for your most recently completed fiscal year, upload it here. If you don't have an audit, you need to upload an internal review. An internal review is your profit loss statement, your balance sheet, and a letter signed by 3 board members saying that they have reviewed your organization's financial records. You must upload one or the other, audit or internal review. If you don't, I'll dock points for compliance, because then I have to reach out to you and ask you to upload these things. When you do an internal review, don't forget you have to upload all three things, profit loss statement, balance sheet, and letter, all from your most recently completed fiscal year. IRS Form 990. This is what all nonprofits have to turn in, but there are three different versions, and we understand that. A regular 990, which is what United Arts has to submit, or the 990 EZ if you're a little smaller, or the little 990 postcard if your annual expenses are less than 50,000. So whatever you have done in the most recently completed fiscal year for that 990, upload that thing, and it's okay. Whatever it looks like, that is what we want to see. If either your audit or internal review, remember one or the other, or your tax return show a deficit, please just tell us why. Usually there are very logical reasons, but if you ignore this question, it's not going to work. First of all, see this little red star here? I made it required, and I did that to try to help you. So you'll try to submit it, even if you don't have an audit, and it won't submit properly. And it's because I made it so you at least have to say, we do not have a deficit. So you have to put something in that blank. Either we do not have a deficit, or we had a deficit of, however much money, and this is roughly why. You don't have to go into great detail, but give us a sense of why did you have a deficit? Is this an ongoing thing? Is this just a one-time thing? Okay, and then this is the end. Okay, questions, Lisa?
Hello. Lots of conversations going on, so hopefully I get them all covered. So the contracted staff question does not include artists, you said. Could you explain that a little bit more?
We want artists to show, we're thinking admin staff during this section. So basically this whole first top part is about admin staff, and then the artists would go down, please excuse me if you're getting dizzy, right here under artists, under the participation statistics section.
So that was arts together. So I think that's why they were asking as far as including artists as staff, contracted staff.
There are times when it makes sense, because you have to, those people are contracted staff for extended lengths of time, and you could include them there. I'm thinking artist of like, you do 4 exhibits a year, and those artists are each paid a stipend to participate in your exhibit. Those are not part of your staff. Those are just, and even though they might have a contract, they're still not contracted staff. So basically, do you consider these folks staff, or are they just kind of hired or participate with your organization for just a very specific kind of a show, an exhibit, some things like that? But if they're considered part of your staff, feel free to include them above.
Exactly. So like they're asking, like, does part-time employees mean someone who receives a 1099, or is that a contracted person? There's a lot of questions with that. So
you pick the one that is best for you.
Okay.
So an employee would get a W-2, right? Hold on, I get them confused. A contractor would get a 1099. So just, I mean, that's like IRS stuff. So if, oh goodness, hold on. Okay, working from home issue, sorry. I'm being protected from the FedEx guy by my dog right now. Okay, so yeah, employees are have taxes taken out. Sometimes contractors don't, if you want to think about it like that.
Right.
Okay.
And what terms are appropriate to describe diversity of board members? African American, Hispanic, white, etc.
Hold on. You could use race, age, any identifier that makes sense to your organization. Like, for example, Lizette, I think you're here somewhere in this call. You could say like 100% of our board is Latino, but no, you could spread it out and be like, okay, we have this many people from Mexico and this many people from Guatemala and this many people, like you could spread it out to make sense for your organization. That's why we're not super specific, because we want to hear about that. We're just interested in knowing, do all of your board members fit the same demographic background, or is it more diverse? We're trying to get a sense of that.
One question was, is Jewish appropriate?
If it worked for you, include it.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get some of these together. Laura Moore asks, is the membership acquire artists? I'm not sure what that means, Laura, if you want to expand. Maybe Reagan, you do know what that means. Is the membership of acquire, I guess, considered artists? In quotes.
Well, so the singers audition to be a part of your group, and then they're in the group.
Right.
But would you, don't you invite members of the general public to the concerts? So I think you
Yes.
do. So therefore,
Yes.
I think is that what you mean?
I guess I'm just confused in the participation statistics, where to put our membership. Are they volunteers? Are they artists? And
Are
if
your
we do,
memberships the singers?
yes.
Count them as artists.
Okay. And if they sing one concert a year, you count it once. If they sing 5 concerts, do you count it 5 times?
Ooh, that's tricky. That is tricky. I would say that theater folks, like if I came to 5 of your shows, you're going to count me 5 times. So that's a little tricky. That is up to you. Just be consistent. Just be consistent. That's all I can say.
Okay, but just put our singers, our membership in the artist category, not in volunteer category.
But they're, without them, they're the people who are sharing the art with the public. So yeah, I think they count as artists.
Thank you.
And Reagan, we do have a couple of I don't know how many, but a couple of questions from new organizations, which is awesome. I've just suggested to them in private chat that they reach out to you with a lot of the questions that they might have, because it would be different for them. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with your answer, Lisa. Good job.
Trying to save you a little time. And one last, if your artistic director is also your executive director, do you list them twice?
Oh, no, because that we're trying to get a sense. Oh my gosh, sorry while I scroll around here, we're trying to get a sense of how big your staff is. Like, for example, for the last, for the year almost that I served as both the head of programming and the head of our organization, I was still just a single person. So I still just counted once.
Right.
So we're trying to get a sense of like how big. So when people say, oh, like the NAA asks us approximately how big are the organizations that you give grants to? I'm like, well, they're small, and this is why, on average, they have this many full-time employees and this many part-time employees, so it helps us with our data that we have to report out also.
I think, guys, if yell out if I missed anything. I think I answered some privately. So yeah, I think you can move on, Reagan.
Okay, are you back to seeing my my slides? Does it say the application? Wait, you're muted still, Lisa.
I don't hang on, I'm on a full screen. Yeah, it says the application.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's keep going then. Okay, so I will be happy, as I usually am, to review any questions you have about applications. If you want an appointment for me to read over your draft of something, I'll accept those appointments between March 13th and March 24th. So what that is, that's like 3 weeks before the deadline. And then there's the week before, I won't, because you should be done by then. But if you want to schedule something with me, and some of you already have, which is great, just go ahead and click that Calendly link and we'll have a phone meeting. Just don't forget, if you want me to review the actual draft, you have to send it to me a couple of days ahead of time, because I am not able to log into Submittable to see what you've done so far. So I would recommend you put things in like a Word document or something that you can share with me easily. The criteria and scoring. So We have community value is 35% of your score. Artistic merit is 35% of your score. And then compliance, organizational management, and financial management are all equal at 10% each. And I will talk, these are the things that the panelists look for, and I'm going to let you know what they look for so it does not seem like a mystery to you. Artistic merit, remember I said is 35%. First of all, how does your organization define artistic merit? And I'm kind of using the term merit and excellence kind of interchangeably here. There are lots of debates about that, but that's how I'm using it in this context. Some ways you might want to think about it. How are your arts programs innovative, distinctive, or stimulating? Do you have professional and clear artistic direction? What are the qualifications and expertise of the staff or artists or instructors that implement your programs and plan them? But again, I think the most important thing for artistic merit is you tell us, how do you consider something to be artistically excellent, and you give us the lens through which you want us to look. For example, if you had a bunch of young string students who are just learning how to hold their little violins for the first time, the artistic excellence there is very different than like professional adults that you may be hiring to come in to do a concert for a paid ticket price. But that doesn't mean that the students are less valuable than the professionals. You just help, like this is like maybe in the student example, the artistic merit is the quality of the instruction that the quality of the instructors that are able to connect with those students. It varies dramatically, and there are lots of correct answers. Lots of correct answers. Community value, also 35%. How have you continued to stay relevant to your community? Have you demonstrated that you're listening to your community and are reacting to them with your programming? What efforts have you made to include a diverse population? And one that our panelists keep asking us, they want you to tell them, how do you fit into the arts community in Wake County? Are you the only traditional Indian dance company there is, or like place that a person can go to take classes? Are you the only thing in Garner? You can tell who I can see right now, Asha and Scott. But like, you know what I mean? Like help, not the only thing in Garner, the only theater company, you know what I mean? Okay, but like help the panelists understand how you fit in with other things. Like you would never want someone to say, well, we already read a theater company one that seems bigger somehow. And we're like, no. Look at this theater company through this lens. Or whatever the case may be for your organization. Organization management, remember this is 10%. Does your leadership reflect the diversity of Wake County? Do you have the capacity and resources to plan and implement arts programs successfully? Are your personnel qualified? Are the values of cultural equity and inclusion reflected throughout your organization? Where are you in that journey? Let us know. Lots of right answers here. I mean, there's a couple of wrong ones. If you were like, we don't actually care about cultural equity or inclusion, that might be an example of an answer that would garner a low score. How's that? Financial management, 10% of your score. We basically look at three things. Do your FRA stands for fundraising and admin. Do your fundraising and admin expenses exceed 25%? If you have a deficit, is the explanation reasonable? And if you have an audit, are there any audit notes that are of concern? For this one, your score starts at 10, and for everything that's not quite right, points are docked. So just the first three, artistic merit, community value, and organization management, you're not really, your peer review panels are the ones who score those. Financial management is comprised of a different group of people who start off at 10 and then dock down. For compliance, this is me. I am the only person who provides this compliance score. Everybody starts off with a perfect score, and then if I have to dock points, I do. Are you missing documents? Usually the documents are, you have an internal review and you didn't submit all three things. Remember, profit loss, balance sheet, letters signed by board members. Maybe you, or number 2, insufficient signatures. You gave me a letter, but none of your board members signed it. That does not help. So like, just remember that I'm looking for those things. It's kind of like our due diligence to hope that if we give you money, it will be well spent. If you had a deficit and you just decided not to include an answer, I will dock a point. Now, I made that blank required, trying to make it so I don't have to ever dock a point because you decided not to tell me why you have a deficit. Even if you have to write, we do not have a deficit. I did that so that at least you have to put something in that blank in order for it to submit. And then the wrong amount requested. This is really important. Remember, I said, I'm going to go back because you can ask for 10% or 20% of your expenses from your most recently completed fiscal year. I'm going to go back and look. Now, sometimes what your audit may say is a little different than your 990. So, and I don't dock you for that because sometimes there are logical explanations for small differences there. But if it's dramatically different and you just ask for 20,000, even though you weren't allowed to ask for that, I'm going to dock a point there. So don't do that. This is how we separate the panels. Some of you, if you've talked to me, you may know this, but I thought it might be best just to share it outright. We break down all of the organizations by your budget size. Now, what I've given you here is what it looked like last year, just as an example. So last year, the one panel 1, were organizations that had budgets of less than 100,000, and there were 12 in that group. In panel 2, it was organizations that had budgets between 100 and 400,000, and there were 11 in that group. And then panel 3 was organizations that had annual budgets of greater than 400,000, and there were 10 in that group. If you are a new organization, you don't go before a panel. We have a separate group of staff because you're in a different situation altogether. And last year there were 8 of those. So that's how it broke down last year. It may be a little different because I try to keep those panels not overwhelming. I want panelists to be able to read each of these applications thoroughly. And so I don't want anybody to have like 30 applications to read, for example. So that's why we separate the panels. Who scores? First, there's like the grant panel proper, the ones you see. They are only responsible for providing 3 scores: community value, artistic merit, and organizational management. Then the financial review panel is only looking at, all they look at are your 990 and your financial forms, whether that's your audit or your internal review. And they have a rubric based on those 3 questions about your fundraising and admin expenses, deficit explanations, or any audit notes of concern. And remember, a financial panel is the one that everyone starts with a perfect score and then of 10, and then points get reduced. And then compliance is me. It's just me by myself, making sure that you put everything in that application that you were supposed to. I don't judge the quality of like your answers and things, but I make sure that all of the items are there so that it can be forwarded to the panel. For the grant panel, I generally have 5 to 7 different people on the panel, and their scores are all averaged. And so that's how it comes down so that you end up with a final score. How grant panels are calculated. Okay, so it starts off with your annual expenses, and then you calculate your request amount to us. Remember, it's 10% or 20%, but no more than 20,000. Then separately, the panel has reviewed all your materials and provided a score, and I've done worked with my favorite Excel spreadsheet to make sure that all the calculations are correct. Then we look at how many dollars we have, and then that helps us decide the grant amount. So this is the pictorial representation of how the gears all work together, but let me show you a little bit of the math for those of you who are into math. This is how the grant awards are calculated. Okay, so we are pretending that our most recently completed fiscal year was 21-22, because remember, we are in fiscal year 22-23 right now, so you can't submit financials for that because it's not done yet. You had operating expenses of $250,000. 10% of that is 25, but remember, the maximum amount you can request is only 20,000, so we reduce it to 20,000. the panel read everything and they gave you on average with everything calculated at all the right percentages, you ended up with 85%. So I say, what is 85% of 20,000 equals 17,000? But then I have to look and see how many available dollars do I have. This year, as those of you who applied might remember, we had more money than we've had in quite some time. We had $624,000 to give away for the year we are in right now. Hopefully it'll be what next year looks like too. So but all the allowable requests of all the organizations exceeded how much money we have. Rats. So we only have 624,000, but everybody wants 700,000. So we divide, that's 89%. So then I say, okay, what's 89% of your 17,000 equals $15,130. That is how much you will get awarded. Now, for those of you who math makes your head spin, you can ignore all of that and just know that we do not make these decisions in a vacuum. Well, I guess it's me and my Excel spreadsheet in a vacuum, but this is the rubric I followed. This is the equation that is followed. So that is not how much we like you personally or don't like you personally. It is really about the panel score, what your allowable request is, and how much money we have. Okay, deadline, Monday, April 3rd. No hard copies are needed or accepted. Do not mail us anything. Everything should be in submittable. United Arts has an office. It's at Marbles, but we don't use it a ton. We tend to work from our homes and then come together at certain times. So I don't want anything mailed to our PO box. And I certainly don't want anything mailed to my home. So just remember, everything that we need to see is in submittable. This is also the way the panelists log into submittable, and this is how they see everything. Okay, a couple more things. Panel feedback. If you would like to see some of the panel comments, you can request them after I send out the award notifications, and I will compile them and send them to you. Just remember, they're not consensus comments. So you may have a comment like, I'm so impressed by how many people they reach every year, followed by a comment that says, I sure wish they would reach more people every year. And that can be very frustrating to you. And I understand that, I really do. All I can say is it gives you a sense of how your application was received. That's really all. And sometimes it gives you clues like, did you tell the story that you meant to tell within your application? I'll send those via the panel feedback for those of you that request it via email. And if you want to talk about it, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. Remember that staff don't score. Let's see, I read everything, but I don't score. The only thing I really score is compliance. So like, I don't get to make your overall score about community value, artistic merit, and organizational management does not come from me, but I can certainly, since I'm in all the panel meetings, I can share whatever I am able to. I just wanted to, there are 4 major changes from last year. From those of you who are savvy, who've been doing this a while, you may have noticed. First of all, this eligibility form within submittable is new. So just know it's like a pre-form before you get to the application. There is that new narrative prompt about what kind of programming are you thinking of for doing for next year. Briefly, that's a brief thing. The threshold for the audit requirement is now 500,000. It was 300,000. We increased it to 500. If you have an audit from another funder, or you happen to have I don't know, you just get audits anyway, please just give us the audit. You don't have to do an internal review if you already have an audit. But if you were only doing an audit for United Arts and your annual budget is less than 500, you can just give us an internal review from now on. And then the fundraising and admin expenses, which we call FRA expenses, not exceeding 25% is now one of our policies. It's not an eligibility criteria, because we realize every once in a while, there's something that makes a lot of sense that why your FRA expenses exceeded 25, and we don't want to make it that you're automatically ineligible to receive our funds. You may get docked points. We may have to have a conversation about that to make sure, just to hear the more detail from you about that, but we didn't want to make it so that you were automatically excluded from even applying, because sometimes there are really logical reasons for that. If you receive a grant, You will find out in late June. I know this is less than ideal. All the contracts will come to you electronically the way they have the last couple of years. That way, no paper. It'll come like Adobe Sign is my favorite thing to use. And that's how it goes out. The grant things are made in 2 equal payments, November and February. The grant period, as I've said a couple of times, is this July through next June. And then the final report will be due in early July. So the final report turnaround time is super fast. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back. Lisa, what kind of questions do we have?
We're pretty good. I think one was asking, is there a minimum grant request? I thought that if people needed to know the minimum.
I mean, this is a lot of work for somebody who can't request at least $1,000. I mean, I would maybe look at how much you can request first and help help you decide whether all of this plus the reporting and everything is quite honestly worth it to you.
And I put a link to the guidelines in the chat, as well as information that a recording of the session will be available on our website soon. And it'll be under missions, up at the link there, it's going to be under mission support grant. Someone did want to know if the actual deck of the presentation will be sent to them. I don't know the answer to that.
I can do that. When I send out, I'll turn it into a PDF and I'll send it out so that you too can have all 27 slides or however many there. I'll send it with the link to this recording. Sure.
Anybody else got anything you want to? I think we're almost at our time. So, Scott.
Yeah. Would it be possible to set it up at Submittable so that when we're done, you could create something that we could print out what we've actually submitted? I'm copying and pasting every year when I do it, just so I can have a reference and I want to know what I'm submitting to. Is that a possibility?
That's a good question. That's kind of a question for Submittable. But what I do, like you'll notice in the guidelines that I gave you a preview or like an example of the application at the end. I pretended that I was going to print it, but instead turned it into a PDF and then I saved that. So that's how I work around that with the NEA and all of those other things too. So maybe that's a solution. Submittable hates it when you print stuff, which drives me bonkers, which is why sometimes if I give you examples of the application, there's all this scribbly stuff at the top, because in their minds, you should never print anything. We're only electronic. So I just turn it into a PDF so I can see exactly what I've submitted.
That's what I mean, a PDF, obviously, an electronic file, but just an easier way to store it is what I'm looking for. I'll try that. Thank you.
I'm good, Reagan. I think I got everybody, hopefully.
What other questions? Okay. If you want to talk something out, let me know. I guess, one thing I want to tell you all. One of the things I hear from panelists, some of our panelists return, and I always try to find fresh new people so that there are fresh perspectives reading these applications every year, is that they come away going, there is so much amazing stuff happening in Wake County that I didn't even know about. Thank you for asking me to be a panelist. And you all are the ones creating all of that. So just know that the panelists come away feeling awfully inspired by things that are happening in our community, and that is to your credit. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to stop recording, but I'm also going to hang out in case people have questions.
Hey, Reagan, also, somebody wants the calendar link in the chat, because you can't get it off your presentation, but I assume you'll send that in your follow-up email. Or can you? I don't have it, so.
Hold on a second. I think I can do it I can take it from my presentation because I wrote it. Hold on.
All right, I couldn't get it.
I know. Oh, wait, why can't I? Hold on. I'm almost there. Copy Jung. Everyone in meeting, paste. Wait, what did,
I
it
think
looks
it's-
like I gave you two Okay, I hope that works. One of them looks like a real link and the other looks like I took a picture of a link. So
Yeah, I think that first one will be fun.
you're welcome. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna figure out how to stop recording. Pause.